substantive changes that are really needed. Thank you.
Te ura Flavel.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Chair, kia ora tātou katoa. Thank you for the opportunity just to speak to this particular section and indeed my SOP. Very briefly, just cutting to the explanatory note, and for those who are listening, my SOP amends this bill by adding a new part, 2A, to ban alcohol advertising and sponsorship with the exemption of on-licence establishments such as bars and restaurants, and that the ban is intended to come into force in 2 years and to achieve denormalisation of the drinking culture by removing the glamour promoted by advertising and sponsorship of events. Mr. Chair, when I was a young fellow, and I talked earlier today about Wilson Wineray and rugby, and not that I indulged too much after a game, but back in the day, there are only about 5 labels of beer that I can recall, and alcohol, maybe 7, and generally people stuck to those. And now you can go to bottle stores, and you've got everything ranging from blonde to pure. I don't know what the opposite might be, what the opposite beer might look like, unpure. But you've got all those labels. You've got Waikato, champion team, and a number of codes. And so you've got to think back and say, well, Waikato beer, what's the link? Is it just because it was originated from Waikato, or was there something about playing on the name, the identity? Certainly about somebody had a real good idea way back in the day to take Waikato as a label of beer. But now you've got all sorts, from our own not homebrew, but homemade brew back here in Aotearoa, through to those that have been imported from overseas. And so one of the things, Mr. Chair, that really whacked me around about 3 years ago, not beer, it wasn't beer, but what really got to me was I went to the Māori Affairs Select Committee when the Māori Affairs Select Committee asked a gentleman from overseas. There was a movie made about it, I think it was called The Informer or something like that, that had Russell Crowe in it, from memory. Anyway, the Māori Affairs brought this person across. Might have been that one. But they brought this gentleman across, Mr. Chair, and what he did was he told the Select Committee that even just in cigarette smoking, that people market right down to the race and to the age and to the gender of a people. And so they talked about marketing to Hispanic women, talked about marketing to black men, to young black men. All that was down to the marketing. And so it really made me understand the power of advertising and the power of image, of brand, and how it's used to manipulate, in some senses, the minds of people. And it must be right, because obviously there's a big market there called cigarettes and alcohol. So in that regard, which is basically why Tariana Turi, the Honourable Tariana Turi, has moved towards plain packaging, which is, I suppose, an endorsement that the idea of advertising, of marketing, is a powerful instrument in terms of drawing people towards a particular product. And that's why the information that we put this SOP up is to draw attention to it, but also to make it a lot more difficult for those companies to draw people towards the product. Mr. Kevin Haig earlier talked about some statistics that I suppose put it all in a context. I heard him talk about the fact that every 9 minutes during primetime television there's a scene depicting something to do with alcohol. I heard him talk about the fact that 90% of New Zealand children aged between 5 and 17 are exposed to alcohol advertising on TV each week. That's a pretty big group of people. And I suppose that the evidence that we certainly got from people like the New Zealand Drug Foundation and so on shows that alcohol advertising, 1, it encourages people to start to drink at a younger age. 2, it encourages people who already drink to drink more. And 3, it makes it harder for problem drinkers to abstain. So, against all that background, the general view that they provided as information to us as the Māori Party was that the regulation of alcohol advertising marketing and promotion is considered the second most effective way to reduce problem drinking and alcohol-related. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, the second most effective way to reduce problem drinking and alcohol-related harm. So, if that's the case, sir, that's the motivation behind this particular amendment, this particular SOP. Now, some might suggest, well, alcohol marketing has no effect on who drinks and how many people are drinking. Some might suggest that it just helps people who do drink to know what's available and to encourage them to pick one product over another. Well, that's one argument. But the rebuttal of that, sir, would be that if advertising and marketing had no impact on people's drinking, then the alcohol industry would not be wasting about $400,000 a day or $150 million a year on it. There's the background and the rebuttal to that discussion. The evidence clearly shows that exposure to alcohol advertising, particularly at a younger age, makes people more likely to start drinking earlier and become heavy drinkers. And marketing methods, sir, as you know, no doubt as you watch TV, have become more sophisticated and subtle than the ads that we see on TV or in magazines. Through sponsorship of youth events like music festivals, the utilisation of social media and the creation of products such as RTDs, alcohol companies are clearly and deliberately targeting young people. For those who suggest that we already have the Code of Liquor Advertising and Advertising Standards Authority to ensure that alcohol advertising conforms to standards, so the downside is that it is really voluntary self-regulation. It's not the model that's working well in any country that we understand. In fact, in New Zealand, the people responsible for upholding the standards are the Advertising Standards Authority, a private sector body representing the advertising and media industries. Now, against that background, you'd have to say they're not exactly independent. And just to conclude, Mr. Chair, the standards rely, talking about advertising standards, sir, the standards rely on public complaint. So if there's no complaint, then technically no standard has been breached. But simply, sir, it's not working. Promotion of excessive alcohol consumption continues despite the fact that despite it being illegal since 1999. So I appreciate the comments of many other the speakers this evening to support my SOP. Māori Party will obviously be supporting my SOP as well as Mr. Ian Galloway's and also David, that's right. And I'm happy to support those, happy to support those SOPs as well. We hope that one of them gets through at least, but we don't want to hold our breath too much against the current climate of how this thing is going. But we do hope that the combined views of members in Parliament through the Labour Party and perhaps, and certainly I think from the Greens who are supporting this as well, indicates that advertising and marketing play an integral role in maintaining the whole drinking culture in Aotearoa. We're looking to change that, and we would hope that the Minister looks favourably upon these SOPs that are presented to the House in a spirit of cooperation and trying to make a real difference to the lives of New Zealanders. Kia ora tātou.
Chair. Honourable Chester Borrows.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I rise to just address the SOPs that have been brought forward by the members so far. And I think